Welcome back to TERF Talk Down Under. I'm Stassja and this is Ange. How's it going?
Hey everyone. Hi. Yeah, good. Very, very busy.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week in TERFy developments. Look, I've just watched the Boris Johnson video, so let's start with that.
It's been like a roller coaster. Like we've had all these big blows and then all these like highs and then hope dashed and hope and then hope dashed. And we're going to roll with Boris and hope he comes through for us, keeps the hope up.
I'm really impressed.
I am too, but it's always from the wrong side of politics for me. But, you know, it's better than nothing. It's good for women in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. I'm assuming that came on the back of their what do they call it over there? Their Equality and Human Rights Commission clarifying the law, saying that the single-sex spaces are necessary in some situations. So I'm guessing it came out of that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that's what gave him the courage to speak out on it. I mean, this would have been bubbling under the surface for years and years and years, as long as it's been, you know, on notice with us TERFy types. But in recent weeks and months, it's all just come up, especially with this new women's advocacy group that's saying to women, look, you know, don't vote for someone who doesn't respect your sex-based rights, because of the Labor leader in the UK who couldn't define what a woman was.
Oh, that's huge. That's great. That's well done, TERF Island.
Yeah.
Back here, though, well, the Greens are in meltdown at the moment over this Rohan. I'm going to say it Rohan.
Uncle Rohan.
I reckon it's Rohan. I reckon his parents named him after the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Well, I think it's Rohan because I'm a bogan.
Rohan Leppert. So The Age did, it was written by a man, a shitty article that, you know, it outlined.
It was a hit piece. It was a hit piece, like all the anti-gender stuff. I mean, anti-TERF stuff.
Well, yeah. It outlined some of our concerns, but it was towards the end of the article. So that's how you know where this journalist's priorities are. So that went off, but then the wonderful freelance journalist Julie Szego, I think it's pronounced, she did an excellent opinion piece. She got our message out there.
Yeah, in The Age, the lefty newspaper. It was amazing.
Yeah. Look, I actually had a chat with her last year in September, and she's working on this like long form article. And it still hasn't been published.
Yeah, because people won't touch it. We know that with Bernard, you know, he's lucky his editor will publish most of his stuff, but even what he has published has got him into trouble with the Press Council. So all these editors are just super paranoid about the trouble they'll get in just for stating facts or defending, you know, right-wing views, which is how TERF sort of rhetoric gets labelled.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's mental. So there was Rohan. And
did you see that the minister, that one of the sort of right-wing politicians, asked in Canberra the Ministry of Health to define what a woman is?
Yeah.
And they couldn't answer. This is the Department of Health. Yeah. They could not answer what a woman was.
Yeah.
If you look it up online, it's the most ridiculous answer you've ever heard.
They said, I'll take that on notice, as if I have to go and check my notes to define what a woman is.
I think of the impacts of that, though, for women when we go into hospital, or, you know, when they're allocating funding to investigate female reproductive issues, things like that. Oh, we don't know what a woman is.
Yep.
How can you fund something you can't name? How can you investigate something you can't name? How can you defend something you can't name?
Absolutely. That senator is Senator Antic. He's a Liberal. I can't remember which state he's in. But that's the second time he's done that in the last week or two.
Love his work.
Yeah, the first one was to the head of, I can't remember what it was, some gender department or something. I can't remember.
You know what's funny though? Oh, and actually, it was the minister for the Minister for Women was on that panel, and she couldn't answer either. Something that I noticed was the pushback against that senator who asked that question was mild, right? And yet, when Kath Deves was announced as the Liberal member for Warringah in Sydney, the pile-ons on her have been astronomical, mostly by men trawling through her tweets using one of those things that can, check deleted tweets, looking for any sign that she's a bigoted, turfy, nasty man-hater. And, the comparison between those two things is just beyond words.
Yeah, it's all a great big witch hunt.
It is. It's misogyny. That's all it is.
Absolutely. The other thing I noticed, I watched, I don't know if you know Douglas Murray. He's a British commentator on all this wokeness. He's very good in how he speaks, very articulate. And he went on Sky News with Rita Panahi, I don't know when, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago or something. And I went through the comments on the YouTube video, and they're all like really supportive of what he's saying. And then you go back and look at when Kath Deves has gone on Sky News. There's all this misogynistic fucking abuse in the comments. It's it's so obvious. It like harks back to what do you remember when Lee Sales from the 7:30 had the Prime Minister on, and on the one hand she was being told that she was practically sitting in his lap, and on the other hand saying the complete opposite. It was just misogynistic abuse, and she tweeted screenshots of some of that stuff, and she's like, this is what I put up with.
We can look in the comments here. We've had a few crackers about the way we look and our age and stuff like that. It's just that's how they combat. A woman speaks out, a woman speaks with conviction, and they just attack her about the way she looks or who she sleeps with or the superficial things, because they've got no argument. That's all they've got. They've got abuse. They haven't got any constructive criticism.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the dark here.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw Kirralie from Binary Australia released a video. Look, it was a good video. I think she did a really good job. I have my limits, and she's crosses the line for me. Says the woman who went on Sky News, but no. I've been acquainted with Kirralie for about 10 years. Yeah, right.
And
Ah.
But anyway, she's on this issue. This is the one issue Kirralie and I agree on, okay? Coming from completely different perspectives. So I respect her opinion on this stuff.
Yeah. She released an 8-minute video where she's calling out the Tasmanian Anti-Discrimination Commission have released this, what was it, a guide to your gender identity rights or something like that. And in it, there's this phrase that your sex is irrelevant. And you know what? That's spot on for Tasmania, because they have removed sex from the Anti-Discrimination Act down there. It's not a protected characteristic.
It's just ridiculous.
Infuriating. Yeah, God. Tasmania's lost the plot. Victoria's lost the plot.
See, this is where the fear of Labor coming in federally comes in, that, if Tasmania can remove it from their state charter, well, who's going to remove it from the federal charter if enough lobbyists get involved? I mean, we've seen in Victoria here what lobbyists can do as far as legislative changes. Like the self-ID bill came in with no consultation with any women's groups at all, not one. They consulted trans orgs and the Royal Children's Hospital, which is the gender clinic. And they did not, because we through Freedom of Information, they got a list of people that were consulted on this legislation, and that was it. Now, what's going to stop, Labor in federal Labor from doing exactly the same thing to legislation? I mean, it's happened in Canada. Aren't all their really dodgy rules all federal?
Yeah.
In Trinidad. I always call it Trinidad now. So strangers, when I go, Trinidad, they think I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I guess if Labor wins this upcoming election, they might just rename the Federal Sex Discrimination Act the Gender Identity Discrimination Act, and remove all references to biological sex, pregnancy.
Well, if that happens, I'm going to abandon my kids and quit my job, and I'm going to go live on the steps of Canberra lobbying because over my dead body. I'm not really going to abandon my kids. So if anyone from, Human Services is watching, no, I'm not really. But, it's just it's just got a beyond a joke.
We could start a women's tent embassy.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good.
Crazy. Oh, look, the other thing that's happened, back to the Rohan thing.
Rohan, if you're watching, can you please clarify how your name is pronounced?
Well, look, the story there, because last week I sort of flippantly said that his crime was that he follows J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
Twitter, but the real story that came out in the Age was that in a private Facebook group, he had raised concerns around Victoria's gay conversion therapy legislation, like the most draconian version of this legislation in the whole world.
Mm-hmm. And justified concern.
Yeah, and say, just expressing some concern that kids are being unnecessarily medicalized, and this is going to make it harder for them to get explorative talk therapy to work through their issues. So that was the gist of where he's coming from. And then he actually joined the Coalition for Biological Reality private Facebook group for a couple of days. And some fucking asshole, some little trans activist with too much time on their hands has infiltrated our group, taken screenshots of a post that Holly Lawford Smith made where she was just, venting about the fact that Melbourne Uni has painted bloody trans flags on the ground at Melbourne Uni, and she'd used the vomit react button, and this asshole is an emoji. This asshole's taken screenshots and put them up on Twitter, showing that Rohan had liked this post, and
I think I liked it too.
had liked a couple of the comments.
Yeah.
So he's on the back foot now. He's left the group. He said, it's not appropriate for a public figure like me to have joined such a group. And Rohan, own it.
Yeah, own it. Yeah, have a look over in the UK. Own your crap. Yeah, we've got your back too, mate, if you're watching.
Absolutely.
Who's going to be watching? Who's going to be watching? I always go, if you're watching, like, people actually watch this crap. But
They do.
I know. And we're so grateful to you.
What's interesting about all of that is, look at what's just happened in the UK.
Yes.
Their conversion therapy legislation, they've said, okay, we're going to remove gender identity from it.
As we should have.
That's right. And
that would conflict with the government's own model of affirmation only. So they couldn't. They had them, the gender clinics had them by the balls, because these are all public funded health organizations. So if they were to outlaw conversion therapy, their own gender clinics would have to close or have to modify their services so dramatically that there wouldn't be 30-something clinics, there'd probably be one or two.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't do it. Yeah. Too much money in it. And the pressure from lobbyists and sponsors as well.
That's right.
Legal sponsors.
So not a peep from the Australian media about that UK legislation. Meanwhile, it's going off over there. There was a lot of discussion. So
this is why I'm hoping all the time, and it hasn't happened, that, we've had a couple of people from our part of the world interviewed on the British, TERFy channels, right? But it's always been single issue stuff. Grassroots TERFs have no We've got no reach apart from within our own little echo chamber, and then people accidentally finding us when they put TERF into YouTube. You're accidentally finding my Twitter because I say something completely outrageous and they go, oh my God, you can't say that. And they come to my Twitter and go, oh, really? Now I'm a TERF. So, you know, we do attract people. But if someone in the UK could give any of us feminists, not us, because, you know, you might not like us, but any of us Australian feminists a boost or a platform or something to force the Australian media to pay attention to us, because we are screaming. I am screaming.
Well, I have been thinking we should just start writing articles for the Daily Mail, any writers out there, because they do have an Australian arm.
Yeah.
And, you know, they've covered the transgender issues really well.
I got an article in there. It was about the pornification of breast cancer. Yeah.
Oh God. Oh wow. Yeah.
Through Collective Shout, I got published. I was very happy. Yeah, gave me a little Christmas present. So
that's one possibility. We should start, you know, if the Age aren't going to publish us, if all the important articles on this are behind the Australians paywall, let's try for good old Daily Fail. Yeah, just a thought.
That's good. Yeah, it's good. I wish I had time to write more letters, but because you know, it'd be good. I think if everyone else can do it, if people can do it, I think we also have to start getting some little, you know, copy and paste things that women can lobby politicians with, or you know, copy and paste things from single issues that maybe we can put in the comments here and say, you know, write to blah blah blah, put your name on it, change this and post. So to take the effort out of trying to think about what you can say, but if you're not a natural letter writer, you just sit in front of the computer and go, well, how do I do this? What do I say? And you know, I think it might help that people get a bit of help. Or we could do workshops, but I don't have time for that. Yeah. I'm too busy watching true crime trans podcasts. Clive something or other on YouTube. He does true crime, but it's all trans people. It's fascinating. So while you're watching all this academic stuff, and you know, I'm there like zoning out on true crime stuff.
What's his name again? What's the podcast?
Clive. I can't remember his last name, but he does these really good podcasts on trans criminals, mainly serial killers and, you know, people that have ended off in jail.
Well, send me the link and I'll put it in the description when I upload.
So he's my favourite way of relaxing.
Has he done one on the is it Dana Rivers?
Yes, he has, and he's done our Reginald here and Evie Amati. So he's done a couple of Australian ones. That's how I got interested. I put Evie Amati into Google to get some facts, and his little videos came up on YouTube. So
what's the Evie Amati one again? Was that the
axe? Oh, she was the one with the axe. Yeah, she. Oh God, I called him she. When it names Evie, you say she. You know, that's how they trick us. He was the one that went psycho with an axe because he felt rejected by some lesbians. So
and then got like a light sentence because he was going through a transition.
Yeah, and he's detransitioned in prison, but he's had the lower bottom surgery as well. So he's a detransitioned man in prison, in a women's prison with no penis. So the whole situation's just insane and sad. Like he should never have been allowed to transition genders. He's not a well man. He's
detransitioned and he's had the bottom surgery.
Yeah, because I think the women in prison have showed him what a woman is.
Yeah,
good on him.
Far out.
Yeah.
The other one was the Dana Rivers one, which was
that was terrible.
This sicko that, you know, picketed the Michigan Women's Festival and like stalked this lesbian couple and murdered them and their kid or two kids.
Yeah, and one son, and it took them years to tie up that case. And there was it took advocacy of women, mainly lesbians, who knew the couple, to advocate for the police to actually take some action.
Sounds like a hate crime.
Yeah, definitely.
Should have been treated as a hate crime.
Yeah, it should have.
All right, we have an exciting guest joining us. I'm going to bring her in.
Excellent.
We have today joining us Chris from Victorian Women's Guild.
Yep.
She's coming. It's coming. We just need you to switch on your audio and video if you haven't already, Chris. So Victorian Women's Guild, from what I understand, here she is. Hi, Chris. How you going?
Hey.
Hi.
Welcome. Now, you're with Victorian Women's Guild.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your group and how it started and what you've been up to?
Yeah, sure. So we started in 2019 when the Victorian government brought in we're going to bring in the self-ID bill, Victorian Births, Deaths and Marriages self-ID bill. And I was already connected with a few radical feminists, and so we decided we should do something about it, and we had a meeting, and we decided that we might have more effect if we formed a group rather than just be random individuals or an unnamed group, lobbying and doing publicity and everything. So we came up with the name Victorian Women's Guild because it sounded quite conservative. So we thought that would work really, probably work better to get us appointments with MPs and things like that. So that's how it actually started. I guess we were already, discussing and working on what we could do to counteract this terrible bill that was being proposed by the Victorian government. I think at that first meeting there was about 8 or 9 of us. So the memberships kind of varied a lot, come and gone a lot. And really there's just 3 of us that have been there right through the last few years. And so that's how it got going. Do you want me to tell you more about what we actually worked on?
Yeah, go for it, please.
Yeah. So when we made, we also reached out to other groups like Women's Action Group, etc., that were existing at the time to talk about how we could work together. And it seems like there's little links everywhere, people know people. And so we then decided, we thought our best bet at opposing it was to try and lobby the independents because Labor had the majority. We did lobby the Liberal Nationals, but we thought we'd have to target the independents if there was going to be enough people voting against it. So basically, we just set to work and we started making appointments to talk to various MPs, Victorian MPs. And of course, we couldn't get round to all of them because we were a small group, but we called in, there were others, other women who weren't actually members of the Women's Guild would go along sometimes with someone because someone would say, all right, I'll do so-and-so, in such and such a suburb. And somebody would usually volunteer to go along. So we tried to have more than one person when we lobbied an MP. And for example, Michelle came up from Warrnambool and we went and talked to an MP. So we got a very good hearing from the Liberals and they were very cooperative with us, especially Louise Staling and the Shadow Attorney General at the time. And Louise even offered us to organise a meeting room at Parliament House, Victorian Parliament House, if we wanted to call a meeting so that hopefully some other politicians would come. That didn't happen in the end for various reasons. But it was good to get their cooperation. It was very strange for me to be working with Liberal Party members as a lifelong, very, very lefty person. I had never imagined that I would be aligned with the Conservative Party in Victoria against the Labor Party. So that was a kind of, a moment of dissonance for me, for who I am now. I started to really feel that I was an orphan of the left, you know, or the left had left me. And it was disconcerting. But Louise Staley, for example, turned out to be very solid on her, you know, understanding of the trans threat to women, surprisingly so for me. And we did a fair bit of lobbying. And one of the things that I saw when I was hanging around Parliament House, which was something I hadn't done, waiting for appointments, I kept seeing Brenda Appleton there. So Brenda Appleton is you know, so-called woman, presents himself as a woman. And he's got quite, I realise he's got quite high status as a trans activist, and he's not kind of the loony part of the, you know, the kind of, he knows how to lobby, and I believe he's been some kind of a corporate person in the past. And he seemed to be just about living there at Parliament House, and you could see that he was very in with the Labor ministers, actually, and was working really hard to make sure this bill went through. And I could kind of get the idea that he was a very slick operator. He knew what he was doing, and that he was making sure that he probably wrote the legislation, in my opinion. Yeah, so he learned a bit about what was going on. And for example, when we went to see Stuart Grimley, he told us, there was actually 4 of us went, you know, sometimes we had quite a posse landing on the doorsteps of these politicians, and he listened to us very respectfully and interestedly. And he said, you know, they've that the trans activists have already been here to lobby me several times, 3 or 4 times. So that's when I learned how much you know, resources they have, because we haven't got time. Like, we're just all volunteers doing it in our own time. So we, you know, could only get round to some of them. And I realised, for a long time, somebody's been going around and visiting politicians multiple times to talk to them. So someone's resourcing that. I don't think it's all volunteers myself, because I know from trying to get volunteers to do things, it's pretty hard, you know. Everybody's busy, doesn't have time. Yeah, and then the next thing we did, we decided to have a public meeting on this issue, the Births and Deaths Self-ID Bill. So I had contacts with, well, Holly was kind of peripheral. She was sort of in the group, sort of not, but she offered to get a room at Melbourne University, or what was it, a lecture theatre, and security guards for that, which was very helpful. And then we were decided on who we would get to speak, and I called on some friends of mine that I know, for example, from my lesbian feminist networks. So Bronwyn Winter from Sydney and Virginia, and we got, you know, quite a good panel of speakers, and Nina offered to be the moderator, and away we went. And so we had quite a large public meeting, and I got to meet some other radical feminists. I think that's where I met Michelle, for example, and then later she came and lobbied with us. So that's a good way, you know, when you have the public meeting, to build connections, because you get to meet other people and see, you know, see what's happening. And Louise Staley and the Shadow Attorney General came to that, the Liberal, you know, party people came. Of course, no Labor politicians came, though we invited them. And we got a fair bit of publicity for this public meeting.
Was that because trans activists picketed out the front or anything?
Yeah, possibly. I'm not sure if that's the only reason. Maybe it was, you know, controversial. I can't remember exactly why the publicity happened, but yes, so we had quite a large group, maybe 100 of them, protesting against us. So the security guards weren't that terrific with, I didn't think, with keeping them out because, that, like they said, it was a university building, and a few of them came in and said, well, I work at the university, I'm a student, I'm allowed in here.
Yeah.
So we formed our own sort of auxiliary security guards, which was basically Kathy and me. And we would just give them, you know, the stare when they came in, and all but one of them got quite intimidated by that because they've made up their own story about how dangerous, you know, TERFs are. And somehow we're very, you know, they make up their own scary stories. So you only have to look at them and they kind of will. That's what I found. There was one guy who gave us a bit of trouble, but eventually he left too. Yeah, so the meeting went ahead, and some of them did come into the meeting, like had booked tickets and got in, and that was okay. Like, we didn't mind that. We didn't want them rampaging, because I saw them at another thing where they were throwing things around that not to do with this topic, but one on sex trafficking that had been organised, and they were quite violent and were throwing things around and being abusive. But the ones who came into the public meeting basically sat there. They could ask questions if they wanted to, and we had a bit of dialogue with them at the end. So that's good, you know, that's what we want, listen to each other. And yeah, so we thought that was a very positive event, and we got a bit of a profile out of that. You know, people were asking for comments during that campaign, and so we had our spokeswomen talking to them. Yeah, so that was our and at that time, like, we ran ourselves ragged. We were working all day and night, you know, working with the politicians and everything, and actually we gave Mary Staley a lot of our material, and we wrote things to her. And she ended up, when that bill came up in Parliament, she, it's on Hansard, she gave a a very good speech, and a lot of what she spoke was things that we'd fed her, you know, so we had sort of co-written that with her, and we were very pleased. And we sat in the, some of us sat in the gallery and watched. Brenda Appleton was there. He didn't talk to us. We didn't talk to him because he was watching how his legislation was going through. Unfortunately, by then we knew that we didn't have much hope because we couldn't get enough, you know, it passed through the lower house and then the upper house. We couldn't get enough independents to side with the Liberal Party. It was quite controversial in the Liberal Party what would happen as well. So anyway, they did good, and the Shadow Attorney General, his name's gone out of my mind at the moment. He gave a good speech too in the upper house, and I really liked the way they listened to us and took a lot of their talking points from us. So that was terrific.
For people who haven't lobbied politicians before, can you run us through, like, what's it like? What's the sort of process that Vic Women's Guild applied to these meetings?
Well, all you have to do is ask for a meeting. And politicians are especially obliged to talk to people in their electorate. So if you get someone in the electorate to ask for it, they pretty well will give you a meeting. I wouldn't be sure if they know that, you know, if it was a Labor Party and they know you're really lobbying against this, they might avoid it. But if you can get in without revealing yourself even, you can just say, I'm a constituent who wants to talk about some issues.
Can they refuse? Because I've had a politician refuse.
Yeah, they can, because they always can say they're too busy or they're up in Canberra or whatever. Yeah. They can't refuse. That's why I say if you really want to talk to them, it's probably better to not show your hand straight away if you think that they're opposed to you.
Too late.
Yeah.
She just screamed at me, trans women are women, trans women are women.
Yeah, look, that happens. We tended not to go. We didn't even try really to, we might have, I can't remember whether we tried the Labor, but see, they've all been told a line that, like, parties have, this is what you've got to say and you can't get away from it. You know, they have to toe the party line. Otherwise, it's a huge issue, like it is with Rohan at the moment in the Greens. He's, you know, not towing the party line, so then he comes under attack. And yeah, so it's, look, to tell you the truth, I haven't done a lot of that lobbying before. So this is the first time that I've really done lobbying on bills and things like that. But I guess I'm used to speaking up, you know. I've been an activist for, you know, 50 plus years, and I'm not intimidated about talking about my opinion. One of my favourite ways of getting to politicians is not even booking an actual meeting with them, but just going to things that they're at, public events, and then just buttonholing them there. You saw that guy who had a go at the Prime Minister yesterday about aged care issues. Well, that's a terrific idea, you know, like be controversial, really confront them. But I basically just kind of sidle up to them and have a chat about whatever issues. And you have to feel confident to do that, confident to, you know, that you can argue your case. And I find it's best to do it in a way where you're not antagonising them too much. Just, you know, be strategic in how you approach them. You've got to convince them, not, you know, if you want to convince them to vote in ways that we would want them to vote, it's best to get them to see you as a reasonable. You know, when I was younger, I did a lot of yelling and screaming and things. Now I'm a bit more strategic. Yeah, so you can find out where they're going to be. You know, you can hear about, oh, they're going to open this bridge or go and speak at, you know, they often turn up at a conference and just to, you know, stand up and be seen, and then they leave. And I remember they were at one, what was it? It was supposed to be a lesbian and health conference, but it turned out to be more, you know, an LGBT. Anyway, this minister was there, and as she left, you know, I just sidled out of the audience and got her as she was walking out and said, oh, can I just talk to you about something for a minute? Oh, yes, they go, you know, because they think they're in a, you know, they've just, they're with a crowd that kind of is on their side. Yeah. And so then they're listening. So that's some of the things. But I would say if you want to go and lobby, take a couple of people with you. Like, even if you are confident, you can sometimes get, you know, forget to say things, get taken down a sidetrack, whereas somebody sitting there watching can kind of pull up some more ideas that, you know, might get lost. There's no reason why you can't, you know, have more than them. But look, to tell you the truth, I haven't found that the lobbying's worked terrifically as far as the Victorian Labor government goes on their bills. They were pretty well all made up their minds about what was happening. They had the majority and there was no turning them. So I guess all we did was bring some things into the consciousness of some of the Liberals and independents who probably hadn't heard those arguments very much. And also, oh yeah, I've just lost my track there for a minute. And public opinion, you know, getting some publicity and getting known as an organisation that will speak on this issue. But to do that, you have to have someone who's confident to be a spokesperson and appear on the media. And that's not always easy because you really got to have your wits about you, and they can be very manipulative, media interviewers. And at the moment, the Victorian Women's Guild hasn't got someone who's, you know, willing to stand up and be the spokeswoman because, look, I've done a lot of it in the past, but I feel I'm nearly 70 now, and I feel like I'm not as sharp as I was with the comebacks and all the details. I just lose. Like, I can't even remember the name of Donovan, his name was, the Attorney General, you know, and you need to have all those facts to throw around, I think. So, and this is our problem, that a lot of people aren't willing to speak up in public on the issue. And then you've got to have the skills and the confidence to do the media stuff. And especially if you've got a hostile media, you know, you've got to be pretty, quick on the draw.
Look, I got into this whole debate after self-ID had already passed. So, you know, I'm surprised that I didn't see it in the media, because I used to, you know, check the news sites every day. What was the media coverage like when this?
Look, I believe, it's a few years ago, so I can't, I'm not really on the ball. But for example, Holly got an article in the printed in the Age, which was I thought was pretty good at the time, because they'd been pretty hostile. They just seem to be turning now. Like now they've had a couple of articles that are really questioning. The one that was on the front page, I don't know, a month or so ago, about the terminology around mothers and birthing, and that was a terrific thing. But you see, none of that happens if you're not lobbying behind the scenes. For example, I have a friend who is good friends with one of the women who wrote that paper that article was about. So she's been feeding her, ideas and critiques and theories around that. And then they published that. Now, why they got on the front page of the Age, I still don't know. That's an interesting story. And then there was the, the article about Rohan and the Greens. And then there was one by Julie Szego, or however you say her name, which was really questioning the trans. So you can see it's starting to come through. But a few years ago, there was nothing like that. So you have to make a noise so that they slowly start to take notice and start to think, oh, it might not be so straightforward, all this LGBT stuff. It's a bit more complicated. And if you feed them ideas and research that we've done, it makes their life easier, because, they don't have, we've radical feminists have been researching all this stuff. There's, websites with lists of, look at Tavistock Clinic, look at what's the, all that sort of thing. So then that makes it easier for them. Though we didn't have any contact with that Julia, so I'm not sure where that came from really, but she's probably talking to someone, She's
a freelancer, and I sent her a thank you email just to say thanks for that article yesterday. And I think she wrote, I should remember because I only read it this morning, but she replied and she said something about, I think, I'm way down the rabbit hole now. So yeah, that she could be our voice. Let's see. Yeah.
It takes one person to wake everyone up, like just one comment by one person, and some, to get the attention.
Yeah.
And then down the rabbit hole people go. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, that's right. See, with the Victorian Women's Bill, then we went on to challenge the Change and Suppression Conversion Bill. So we did the same, did lobbying, but again, we didn't get anywhere, and it gets a bit tiring, when you put a lot of time and effort into going and talking to these politicians, and the legislation just goes through. And I think then you have to try and get public opinion, because they respond to public opinion. They're passing all that because they think that there's this huge LGBT, voter group, and they're sympathisers that will support this legislation. So then you need to get them to understand that, or maybe they do know it because they're sneaking this legislation in behind the backs of the general public, thinking that they're very progressive and people are just prejudiced, not that we might actually be informed that there's a problem with all this. So,
see, they know that there's significant conflicts of interest in that legislation, and they're covering their eyes. They're doing that, la 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 la. They know. They cannot not know.
I think the Labor Party, they might think, oh, it's just conservatives and Christians that are against it.
Yeah.
And they think they probably know vaguely that there are some, feminists against it, but they think we're some kind of mad fringe group.
Yeah.
And not that actually most people would agree with us.
Yeah.
If they're asked.
And those mad fringe are actually the real left.
Yeah.
The real, leftist extremists are the mad old TERFs. Yeah.
Yeah. The thinkers.
I've sometimes wondered if there is this problem of politicians simply aren't informed on the issues. Was that apparent at all in your meetings with these pollies? Were any of them like sitting there like shocked and like, oh?
Yeah, they do get shocked. For example, I buttonholed Jed Kearney, who's she's the shadow minister, no, the assistant to the minister for shadow assistant minister, the minister for health. So she turned up at a friend's birthday party in my state I was at, and because they were launching a leaflet that this friend had, she was launching it, and this friend of mine's a big supporter of the Labor Party. So Jed Kearney turned up. So I just started talking to her at this party. Terrific, because her guard's down. She thinks she's amongst friends. I actually like her, but anyway, I just brought it up. And she was, first of all, my friend said, oh, no politics. And I said, oh, no. And she said, no, I'd like to hear what you've got to say. So she actually sat down in a chair next to me and talked to me for about 20 minutes. And she was very shocked at some of the things I told her about the trans stuff. So I could see she was really uninformed. And she was interested, and she asked me to send her some more information, which I did. But I don't know whether she's looked at it. This is a problem that politicians have got a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff to read, and they're not going to read something unless there's something pushing them to do it, unless it's some issue. But anyway, so she was obviously not very well informed on the issue. I think they just, imagine that the LGBTs are all of the same opinion. Yes. And this is what they want. And I think she was, they're often surprised when I say to them, no, we're not one monolith, and they don't represent the kind of lesbians that I mix with. And I know they have some lesbians in there, but I said, there's a whole different culture, and you really need to actually consult with us if you're putting things through, because they're not speaking for us, even though you might think they are. So I think that's an important message to get across to them. They are really informed, that's for sure. So
that was a Labor assistant minister, right?
Yeah. She's federal parliament.
Yeah.
So if she retains her position, if they get elected, she'll be the assistant to the health minister. So I really do want to talk to her some more, especially about what's happening to children, which I didn't actually get around to in this conversation.
Yeah.
Because I also discussed a few other things like aged care and that I'm interested in, because I didn't want to come across as a fanatic on just this one issue. Get it? You give a rounded picture, and I build her, a picture of myself to her that I'm deep thinking, well informed, activist on many issues, and this is one thing I'm really concerned about, so that they can't say, oh, this is just someone who's a bit crazy about this one topic. It's very strategic. It's kind of, I just do it automatically, but you've got to use a bit of psychology in getting them sympathetic to listening to you.
It must be very hard for the Labor politicians that know about this, that share our gender critical views. Like, they're just silent at the moment. They must be terrified to get found out or speak up about this, I reckon.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many there are. You see that happening a lot more in England, because I think it comes back to your point, Stassja, that they're not very well informed on the issue. They've just been told this is what LGBT blah blahs want, and they just think that, and so they're not looking further. So we do need to find a way to get them to think about it more, be more informed, and I think that means getting the general public more informed so that they feel that kind of pressure. We did try doing the Stanisland campaign with them and sent the Stanisland question to all this is what the Victorian Women's Guild did, to all the politicians in Victoria. And I think the last time I looked, we only had 10 replies and there was only one who agreed with us, so that was Louise Daly, I think. So they just ignore it because they get, probably hundreds of emails a day, and their staff go through it and they go, oh, this is an issue that's got, some kind of influence on electability, and so I'll address that, and the rest just gets left. So you could only get them to answer that if you somehow got some publicity, that was pushing them to answer it.
Okay, well, look, we're going to have to wrap things up soon, but I'm going to try and start asking this to every guest that we have on. What was your peak trans moment?
Oh, my peak trans moment was way back in 1991 when I was involved in setting up the lesbian space in Sydney, and then someone came along and started pressuring us to accept trans into, pretending lesbians into the lesbian space. And that was, I was probably peak trans since I read Janice Raymond's, Transsexual Empire, even before that. But that was, very upsetting what happened with, that's a whole big story. So we'd actually raised money to have the first ever lesbian space in Australia, maybe in the world, and it actually got destroyed by the kind of controversial divisions that happened between lesbians who wanted these men to be able to say they were lesbians and come into the space. So and since then I've been pretty, ropeable on the whole issue. Good. So it might be new for some of you, but it's something, I've been dealing with for a long time.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, Chris, well, thanks so much for speaking with us.
That's all right. Thanks for asking.
If you and the Guild, want to recruit some women to get involved, let us know. I'm actually on the mailing list and I've been to a couple of meetings, but, like a lot of women, time constraints. I wish I could do more. I went to the Melbourne Uni event and it was amazing, really good event. That's where I met most of my current group of friends at that event, So, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no, we need more events, that's for sure. Yes, we'll talk about having more events where we actually get together, because I think you actually have to physically meet to build that kind of solidarity that gets you going.
True.
All right, thanks for the good work you're doing too.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'll hop on my horse and I'll see you another time.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was excellent.
Yes. Chris, really, she came to my attention just with just writing posts. I saw it, basically commenting on, random Facebook posts, and she's so articulate in the way that she writes. Really caught my attention.
I met her at a little protest we did out the front of the Victorian Health Minister's office. Oh, yeah. And afterwards 4 or 5 of us went and got some lunch at a nearby restaurant. She's great value, Chris. Knows her stuff. It's a real pleasure to have, older women that have been activists for such a long time. Like Anna McCormack comes to mind. Busy. They know their stuff.
It's funny how it's generational, because I'm getting quite young women contact me in their 20s and I'm like, oh my God, because when I first discovered feminism and women's rights activism, I was their age. And now I've become the age of the women that I used to sort of look up to as leading the way. And then I'm looking up to the women in their 70s and 80s. as, you know, leading the way for me. So it's really weird how it's generational, and then you find yourself, you go, hang on, I'm one of those old white feminists, oh my God. Which I don't mind at all. I do not mind, and I'm only going to get more radical as I get older.
Good stuff. Yeah, look, because I had so much travel on, you know, in February and March, I didn't end up organising a meeting with my federal MP, who's Tim Wilson, gay man, Liberal, so Conservative. I didn't end up organising it. And now, you know, that we're probably going to have this federal election next month. It's like, oh, I'll just wait till after, and be great to, yeah, get someone to come with me, because it's my first time. It would be my first time. You'll come?
Yes, see, that's the thing though. Like, you know, I could go and see my local member who I know agrees with me, but you know, it's having to. Well, I have to think. Okay, well, which part of this mess am I going to talk about? And really, the only way I can get in the door is to say, look, you know, I'm a peer support worker. I've experienced all sorts of, you know, violence against me from men, and I'm involved in groups where men are using self-ID to, you know, get into our women only recovery services. So that's really the only opener I have. But I don't really want to go around my own community talking about my bad past and stuff like that, because I don't want to be pathologized, and I don't want to be seen as like some, you know, woman on some crazy vendetta, because that's what happens to women who bring up their, you know, trauma. So, you know, it's really awkward. And then I can go in on the trans kid stuff, but none of my kids are trans. So it's really difficult to bring up an issue that's not related to me, that has the gravity to make them listen. You know, all of the things that I talk about on my Twitter, I have personal lived experience of, and that's why I have the confidence to make these claims when people go, oh, that's outrageous. And I go, well, really? I was there, were you? And that shuts them up. So if I go at everything with that thing from personal experience, but, you know, they don't really want to hear about the personal experience of some random bird from the outer suburbs of Melbourne. You know, so, and that's where lobby groups come in, where they can take the issue as a group and demand that people listen, because they're more likely to take seriously a group that represents 100 women than they are some rando from the burbs. Yeah. So you've got your coalition that you can go and you say, you know, I have a Facebook group with this many members, blah blah blah, and that gives you your foot in the door. You know, you may still get politicians like Harriet Shing, who I call Harriet Shill, who just went, trans women are women, trans women are women, trans women are women, and then turned her back and turned on her heel. Now, I went to her at an autism event.
Was that face to face?
Yes. Yes. That was probably when just after self-ID came in. I went in, I saw her at an autism event because my son and one of my other kids has autism. And it was for carers, which I'm a carer for a person with autism. It was a support group. She came along. And I cornered her and I said, you know, as a mother of autistic children, I'm really, really concerned about the grooming of autistic kids around gender identity. And she went freaking mental, wouldn't even let me get a word in. And people I was with were going, oh, you know, and they go, what did you say to her? And I told them, and they're like, and it was like, she seriously went off, and then she went.
That is so unhinged.
Harriet Shill, yep. And she's that woman, that she is an out lesbian.
Wow. Yeah. Right. Okay.
But she's, you know, obviously it's not affecting her because she's in a long-term relationship, and you know, it was just awful, you know. And that was my first foray into activism on this issue in the last few years, probably coming up to 3 years ago now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And now I just go in, don't care, expect them to tell me where to go. So
is Harriet Shill Greens or Labor? Or?
No, she's Labor. She's Labor, and she's for this outer eastern region.
Yep.
So Victorian Labor, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Oh. Well, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I know you've had adventures on Twitter this.
Oh. Someone sent me screenshots from Facebook, right, which is, you know, people do, about Roxy Tickle talking about me, been watching my tweets, and was talking about how angry I am and how I'm getting increasingly angry over the last year. I wonder why. People got stalking my tweets and talking about me on Facebook groups where I don't know anyone. Like, hello. So, yeah, you know, if you want to build a profile of someone who's a little bit fixated,
yeah,
you go. This is the same person that's taken Sall Grover to the Human Rights Commission about Giggle not letting him in. So, you know, he's trying to demand to come into my tweets, but no.
He doesn't seem.
He's got no boundaries.
Yeah, that's it. And it's something he said in there triggered a memory for me of just this week. Genevieve Gluck went on Feminist Question Time and did an absolutely excellent presentation on the history of the man who invented the transgender flag. And she goes off on a little tangent. It goes for about half an hour, I think. She goes off on a little tangent about this this transvestite group that this man was part of. And you know, they had I don't know, a newsletter or a magazine or something that they would produce, this transvestite group, and in it all these comics making fun of women. So one that I remember was you know, a man dressed up in his transvestite outfit and making fun of the fact that his wife is still doing the housework. Right?
Yeah. Well, they often wear inappropriate clothes that would be completely unsuitable for housework. So that makes sense.
Yeah. But, you know, men like Roxy Tickle, I can just imagine him having that attitude towards women. It is so obvious with the way he's abusing Sall Grover at the moment.
Abusing the system to abuse Sall Grover, using the Human Rights Council to harass her while she's pregnant.
Yeah, I can just imagine it. I mean, yeah. Anyway.
An old mate who's got the resources of a particular football club who keeps threatening to take people to court as well.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of them, and they are autogynephiles, and they are fixated, and they're fixated particularly on women who don't take their crap. Which includes us.
Yeah.
And it's sad. Oh, look, you know, because I'm going to get in trouble for the true trans again. You know, these are not the trans people that I know. This is so far, all the shit that we talk about on here is so far removed from the trans people that I have in my life, except for my father-in-law who's an AGP. But you know, but I'm just astonished at how the AGPs have taken over from the dysphoric transsexuals. And some people say they're the same, but their behaviour is not the same. It's not as threatening. You know, they're not homosexual. These are straight men who have a fetish for dressing up as women. And it doesn't seem like the same people that I remember from growing up in a house with, you know, trans identified people, from the time that I met Carlotta, from all of these. I know she's thrown in as an example, but, you know, I can't believe that I'm on this side of the fence when these were my allies, because their behaviour was not an attack on me and my entire sex. And I just find it really astonishing that the autogynephiles have been allowed by that trans community to completely take over. Yeah. Completely. And then the AGPs are the ones who have pushed the legislation. It's the stuff of nightmares when you really think about it, because they're all sickos. The AGPs.
You also just reminded me, I ended up making a meme out of something that Genevieve Gluck had put into an article, and it was a quote from the man who invented the trans flag, where he's saying that when I put on women's clothing, I felt a wide range of human emotions, but at the top of the list was sexual excitement. Okay, so that's what that fucking flag stands for. So when Holly Lawford Smith uses the vomit emoji to express her disdain for the trans flag, it's well justified. Yep. Anyway, there's some dickhead on Twitter. I rarely am active on Twitter, but
wise move.
I replied and I put this meme of what this man has said, like confessing his autogynephilia essentially, and some fucktard trans activist responds with, "What's so sickening about sexual excitement?"
Do you know what else gets me? The colour of it.
Fuck.
Yeah, baby blue and baby pink. Baby.
Yeah.
Like, you know, of all the colours that they chose, they weren't a strong pink or a strong blue. They're the colours that are associated with infants. Infants. That's what really grinds my gears about that stupid flag. And then don't get me started on the other rainbow flag with the great big penetrative arrow going into it, which is so offensive to me. Bring me back the old proper rainbow. I'm happy with that. But no, it's just revolting.
Well, that's the other thing Genevieve was saying, that pedophile groups use baby pink, baby blue.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
I have to have a listen to that. I'll have a listen to that in the car today. It'd be good.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. I'll put a link below. All right. Well, I think that's everything for this week.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's been a busy week. There's so many things we could have talked about, but yeah, a lot happening. I'm just hoping that what's happening in the UK has some influence over here in Australia, because you know, I am so sick of saying the same things over and over again. Imagine, you know, having had like me saying constantly, men are abusing sex self-ID to self-identify into women-only crisis services, and I'm hearing silence. And it's wearing me down.
Yeah.
It is wearing me down, you know, slowly.
It's just screaming, and feels like screaming into the void.
15-year-olds are having their breasts removed like 2 weeks after their 15th birthday here through the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, saying that over and over again, and nobody's listening except Bernard.
Oh, that post you sent me by, what was it, some autism network, and it has this picture of a woman, and you know, she's got a female face and long hair down to here, and she's topless, and she's just got this giant scar across her chest.
Non-binary now. She's non-binary.
All
the autism groups, all the really good, helpful autism groups are captured. All of them, even Yellow Ladybugs, which is Australian, which was just specifically for girls, because girls with autism present incredibly differently to boys. It's harder to get them diagnosed. They're higher functioning, usually just, you know, fall through the cracks and get diagnosed with all sorts of other things. And this wonderful little group is now for girls and anyone from any old gender identity, this wonderful group. So I'm absolutely gutted, and I leave them all. I leave them. I mean, I joined all those groups when my kids were first diagnosed over 10 years ago. And I had no idea what autism was. I had, you know, no concept of it. And they were the first port of call, because they give you the diagnosis back then, particularly, and even now, and they just kick you out and go, "Oh, your kid's got autism, bye." Go and do your research, and you hop online and it's all horror stories. And then you find these little support groups on social media and join them, and they give you a bit of hope, and they give you a bit of a place where you can talk to other parents. Now, the ability to talk to other parents has gone now, because everything that, if you say something that other people in that group don't agree with, you get accused of ableism. If you say, "I'm having a hard time with my kids," you get accused of ableism, right? If you're not autistic yourself, and probably if you are autistic yourself. But all of these groups have been 100% captured by gender ideology.
That's terrible.
All of them. It's terrifying. Yeah. And I speak to professionals, because I'm doing counselling, and, you know, part of the things that I'm going to work in is in autism, and, you know, I speak to professionals about this issue, and they're all terrified of the conversion therapy bill and the impact on the autism community, because, you know, these kids are going to be taken to or go to psychologists and psychiatrists that are specialists in autism, not specialists in gender identity, and the only choice they have is to handball them over to gender clinics, because if they suggest, "Look, maybe you're not trans, you're autistic," they'll get the bigot, and then they'll get conversion therapy thrown at them, and nobody wants to risk it. And yet it might not happen. You know, nobody wants to risk it. The same thing about people not speaking up in their own name. You might not get doxed and abused and harassed, but you don't want to risk it. So nobody ends up speaking up because nobody wants to risk it. So frustrating. You know, all the years I've been publicly TERFing, particularly the last 3 years, one person has, apart from Harriet Schill, has had a go at me.
Mm.
Most people, even if they respectfully disagree, they don't have a go.
Yeah.
But I would say 98% of people agree with me. And these are people from all walks of life, all political ideologies, all different backgrounds. A lot of people from the left, because that's who I gravitate towards. So, you know, nobody's speaking up. But everyone's expecting this small little handful of people who are tired, who are busy, who are broke, who are whatever. They're expecting us all to do the heavy lifting. And we can't, you know. Like, another thing we'll talk about next time maybe is about you know, the cost financially and emotionally of this work. You know, we have to put the jar around for legal action, but we also have to put it around for things like banners and posters and stickers and stuff like that. And it's always the same people contributing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if we want to be like the UK, then we have to come together like the UK and step up together.
Yeah.
And we need help from people in the UK. And we need help from people in America who've got a platform. You know, if you see this, not just for us, but if you don't like us, any of us Australian women, you know, give us a hand, because we're so far behind.
Well said, Ange. And while you were speaking, I came up with a little slogan: sterilizing autistic children is ableism.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's horrifying.
Eugenics. It's eugenics.
It's horrifying. I know a couple of ace. I was going to say ace kids, because that sounds like asexual. But I know a couple of kids who never going to have surgery, never going to have hormones, but they identify as pan, bi, whatever. Not pan, trans, whatever. And they're great kids, you know. And I'm okay for people to identify as whatever they want. No hormones, no surgery, and don't come into my women-only spaces if you're male. All right, you know, that's my compromise.
Okay, we better finish there because we've gone over an hour. There you go. Everyone gets
a big drive ahead of me now. I've got to go and get a new laptop, guys. What should I get? Any suggestions? And I'm broke, so I only suggest cheap stuff.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I do need to look up, because I'm in the dark. I'm changing colours. It's all smoky. So I do need a new laptop. So yeah, hop in the comments and please, I'll take your suggestions. And I'm a tech idiot, so something that's easy to use, preferably not with Windows because it clogs me up. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you to all our subscribers. Please like, share, and subscribe. That doesn't sound. But we will see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.